Hey everyone, are you ready for a really interesting deep dive today?
I think so. What are we looking at?
Well, we're going to be exploring the idea of a hollow Earth.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
get this, our source material is a PDF document written completely in Arabic.
Wow, in Arabic.
Yeah, it's called hinyaanotis.pdf. So it's not going to be easy for me to just quote directly from it, but I think we can pull out some of the main ideas and see what they're saying.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is it kind of mixes like scientific ideas with some pretty wild claims about, a world inside our world.
Wow.
Like, for example, it even mentions authors like Jules Verne, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Sure, Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Exactly. Like, these stories really helped make the Hollow Earth idea super popular.
Yeah.
But then it goes on to talk about historical figures like John Cleves Sims. Like, he actually believed the Earth was hollow.
Oh, wow.
And even tried to get an expedition together to, like, find an entrance.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine?
Well, it's interesting because the Hollow Earth concept has been around for, like, centuries.
Right.
You find it in folklore and literature,
Uh-huh.
even in early scientific theories. I mean, this guy Symes, he wasn't just some random eccentric. He actually developed a whole detailed theory
No kid.
with, like, an internal sun and whole ecosystems and stuff.
That's so cool.
It really captured people's imagination, even though it wasn't scientifically accepted.
So we've got these fictional accounts and then these people who really, truly believed it. And now we have this document in Arabic. I'm hooked already.
Yeah.
What else does this document go into?
Well, it gets into some pretty technical stuff like seismic waves, the Earth's mantle.
Okay.
It even suggests that, like, patterns in seismic waves could point to hollow spaces inside the Earth. It talks about these things called shadow zones. Have you ever heard of those?
Shadow zones. They sound a bit ominous. What are they?
Well, they're areas on the opposite side of the Earth from an earthquake, where certain types of seismic waves, the kind that travel through the Earth's interior, are either absent or very faint.
Oh.
And the document seems to interpret these shadow zones as evidence for a hollow Earth.
It does make you wonder, right? Like, if there are these areas where these waves aren't getting to, could it be because there's a void inside?
It's an interesting thought, but mainstream science explains these shadow zones in a different way.
Oh, okay.
See, as seismic waves travel through the Earth, they hit different layers, each with its own density and composition.
Okay.
And these layers cause the waves to, like, bend and reflect, kind of like light going through a prism.
Okay.
And this bending and reflecting is what creates the shadow zones, not necessarily because of any empty spaces.
That makes sense. So by studying how these waves like behave,
Right.
scientists can actually map out the internal structure of the Earth.
Exactly.
And the picture they get is way more complicated than just like a simple hollow sphere. Scientists have been using seismic data for decades to develop a very detailed model of what's inside the Earth.
Yeah, and it's a really incredible model.
So if the Earth isn't hollow, like what is in all that space?
Well, we've got the crust, which is the outermost layer, the one we live on, and then beneath that is the mantle. It's this thick layer of mostly solid rock, incredibly hot and under huge pressure. And then at the very center is the core, which has a liquid outer core and a solid inner core, both mostly made of iron and nickel.
Wow, it's amazing to think about all that going on below us. But the document doesn't just stop at seismic waves. It also brings up gravity and how it might work with a hollow Earth.
Gravity, yeah. It's fundamental to our understanding of the universe. It plays a huge role in how we understand the structure of planets. What's the document's take on gravity?
Well, it basically says that maybe our current understanding of gravity isn't the whole picture. Like, it argues that even if the Earth was hollow, the distribution of mass could be arranged so that the gravitational pull at the surface would be similar to what we experience.
That's an interesting idea.
Right.
Is there, like, any scientific backing for that idea?
Well, the document doesn't really offer any like calculations or models to back up that claim. And it really goes against the law of universal gravitation,
Right.
which says that every object in the universe attracts every other object with a force that's based on their masses and the distance between them. Basically, the bigger an object, the stronger its pull.
So if the Earth were hollow, wouldn't its gravitational pull be weaker?
Yeah, exactly. A hollow Earth wouldn't have the same mass concentration as a solid one, and we would definitely notice a difference in its pull. The document seems to be trying to reinterpret a fundamental law of physics to fit the hollow Earth idea.
It's like they're trying to find any possible way to support the theory,
Yeah.
even if it means challenging basic scientific principles.
It definitely raises some questions, even if the answers don't really seem to support a hollow Earth. But you know what it does mention? One thing that I find really fascinating. The Kola Super Deep Borehole.
The Kola Super Deep Borehole. That rings a bell. Wasn't that some kind of huge drilling project?
It was. The Soviets took on this incredibly ambitious project in the 1970s.
Oh, wow.
They wanted to drill as deep into the Earth's crust as they possibly could.
Wow.
They ended up getting over 12 kilometers deep, which is deeper than Mount Everest is tall.
Wow. That's incredible.
About a journey to the center of the Earth. So did they find anything down there?
Well, they didn't find any proof of a hollow Earth, but the Kola Super Deep Borehole was a huge scientific win.
What do you mean?
Well, they were able to study the makeup of the Earth's crust at depths that no one had ever reached before.
So no hidden entrances to some other world.
Right.
But they must sound something pretty interesting at those depths, right?
They did. They made some remarkable discoveries. One of the most surprising was finding microscopic fossils at depths that were thought to be impossible for life to exist.
Microscopic fossils, miles below the surface.
I know, it's amazing.
That's mind-blowing. What does that tell us?
It shows us how life can adapt to these really extreme environments.
Wow.
You know, environments that we thought were totally uninhabitable. And it reminds us just how much we still don't know about the history of life on Earth.
It really shows that even when we're looking for something specific, like evidence for a hollow Earth, we might just stumble upon other discoveries that totally change our understanding.
That's right.
So even though the Kola Super Deep Borehole didn't prove the hollow Earth idea, it was still a big win for science.
Absolutely.
And it gave us even more evidence that the Earth isn't just a simple hollow shell.
Right.
But this document doesn't seem to give up easily. It goes on to point to another part of the puzzle, Earth's magnetic field.
The magnetic field. Okay. What role does the document say that might play in this theory?
Well, it seems to question the mainstream scientific explanation for the Earth's magnetic field, the dynamo theory.
Right.
It says that maybe the dynamo theory doesn't explain everything we see about the magnetic field.
I remember learning about the dynamo theory. It has to do with molten iron in the Earth's core.
Yep. You got it.
Okay.
The dynamo theory says that the Earth's magnetic field is created by the movement of liquid iron in the outer core. As this iron flows, it creates these electric currents, which in turn generate a magnetic field that goes all around the Earth.
So it's like the Earth acts as a giant magnet.
Yeah.
But this document is saying there might be more to it than just the dynamo theory.
Yeah, it's asking if maybe there are other factors at work that we just haven't figured out yet. But just because we don't have all the answers yet doesn't automatically mean alternative theories are right.
Right.
Scientists are always refining and improving their understanding of the dynamo theory as they get more data.
And there's still a lot of unanswered questions.
So it's important to keep an open mind, but also to look closely at any claims that go against well-established science.
Absolutely. A healthy balance is important.
This document isn't afraid to make bold claims, though. It even links auroras, those beautiful lights we see in the polar regions, to the hollow Earth.
Auroras and the hollow Earth.
Yeah.
That's a strange connection. What does the document say about them?
Well, it says that maybe the auroras are caused by energy coming from inside the Earth instead of them being caused by, solar activity.
So it's suggesting the auroras are like a sign of something happening deep inside the Earth, connected to this supposed hollow space.
That seems to be the idea.
What does science actually say about the auroras? What causes those incredible light shows?
Well, the auroras are a really cool example of how the Earth and the sun interact.
Okay.
They happen when charged particles from the sun carried by the solar wind crash into atoms in the Earth's upper atmosphere.
So it's energy from the sun that's creating those amazing displays.
Right. And the Earth's magnetic field actually plays a big role here. It works like a shield, deflecting most of the solar wind. But some of those charged particles end up getting funneled towards the poles, and that's where they create the auroras. And the different colors depend on the type of atoms that are being excited.
So it's not coming from inside the Earth, but from the sun, millions of miles away.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
I know. But wait, didn't the document also mention Admiral Byrd and his polar expeditions? Weren't there rumors that his trips proved the hollow Earth?
Right. There were a lot of stories about that.
So he was this real-life explorer venturing into the unknown. But what about those hollow Earth claims? Did he actually find any evidence?
Well, despite all the rumors and speculation, there's no real proof that Byrd's expeditions discovered anything like openings to a hidden world.
Okay.
Those claims are based on misinterpretations and distortions of his actual accounts.
So another Hollow Earth myth busted.
It seems that way.
But his expeditions were still important in their own right. They helped us map huge areas of the polar regions and learn more about these extreme environments.
Absolutely. His contributions to exploration are undeniable.
It's interesting how these myths can get mixed up with real exploration, even when the evidence doesn't back them up. You know what else is interesting? The document brings up ancient myths and legends, like those about Shambhala and Agartha. They're often connected to the Hollow Earth. It makes you wonder if these stories came from somewhere real.
It's tempting to think that maybe these ancient cultures knew something we don't. What's the document's take on that?
Well, it seems to say that these myths, which come from all sorts of cultures around the world, could be based on real knowledge of a hidden world inside the Earth.
So it's saying these stories, passed down through generations, could actually be evidence for the Hollow Earth.
That's the idea it's suggesting.
Interesting. Is there any scientific basis for that?
It's important to remember that myths and legends often have a different purpose than scientific accounts. They're stories that express cultural beliefs, values, and explanations for the world. They can be incredibly insightful, but they're not necessarily meant to be taken literally as scientific evidence.
So while these myths might show a fascination with the unknown and a desire to understand the Earth's mysteries, they're not proof of a literal hollow Earth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're more about exploring human imagination and our relationship with the world around us.
It seems like this document is trying to combine science, history, and mythology to make a case for the hollow Earth.
Yeah.
But so far, the science doesn't seem to be adding up.
Right.
What else does this document explore?
Well, it goes on to talk about some arguments against the hollow Earth, which is actually an interesting approach. It acknowledges some of the counterpoints that scientists have brought up over the years.
It sounds like they're trying to anticipate any criticisms by addressing them head-on. What are some of the main arguments against the hollow Earth theory that the document mentions?
One of the big ones is this concept called isostasy.
Isostasy? What's that?
It's basically a principle that explains how the Earth's crust and the layer beneath it, the mantle, balance each other out.
Okay.
Think of it like a giant balancing act.
Okay.
The crust is lighter than the mantle, so it floats on top, kind of like an iceberg floating in water.
I can picture that.
But how does this balancing act disprove the hollow Earth?
Well, if the Earth was hollow, it wouldn't have the weight distribution needed to maintain that balance.
I see.
The crust would be too light, and it would basically collapse inward. And we just don't see that happening. The Earth's crust is super stable, which tells us there's a lot of solid material under it.
So the Earth's crust isn't going to suddenly cave in. Good to know. But the document keeps going. It also brings up something called surge channels.
Surge channels, what are those?
They're geological formations that scientists think were created by these massive, fast flows of water and sediment. They can be really huge, stretching for hundreds of kilometers.
That's huge.
And the document suggests that maybe these surge channels are proof of water flowing out from inside the Earth, like from a massive underground ocean.
Like a giant underground waterfall cascading into a hidden world.
Yeah, it's a cool image, but the scientific explanation for surge channels is based on things that happen on the Earth's surface. These channels are probably caused by major events like the melting of glaciers or when water gets released from big lakes. They show the power of water to shape the Earth, but not necessarily proof of a hollow interior.
Right. No secret waterfalls leading to a hidden world, huh?
Well, this document seems determined to find proof for the hollow Earth, so it goes on to explore another idea, something called genetic energy.
Genetic energy. What's that? How does it fit into this hollow Earth story?
Well, genic energy is a term that doesn't have a widely accepted scientific definition.
Okay.
It's often used in speculative theories like the hollow Earth to describe a hypothetical type of energy that supposedly comes from within the Earth.
So it's like this hidden energy source deep inside the planet.
Yeah, that's the general idea, but it doesn't have any real scientific evidence.
Okay.
The document tries to link granogenic energy to different things, like earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, even the Earth's magnetic field.
It sounds like they're trying to explain all sorts of natural occurrences with one single theory.
Right, which is a common theme in a lot of fringe theories, this search for a unifying idea that can explain everything. But science tends to be more nuanced, recognizing that the universe is complicated and there are lots of different things at play.
That makes sense. It's rarely as simple as we'd like it to be.
Exactly. But the document does raise a question about the formation of planets.
Okay.
It challenges the typical model, which says planets form over time from dust and gas coming together.
The nebular hypothesis.
Yeah.
What does the document propose as an alternative?
It doesn't really give a specific model, but suggests that the standard model doesn't fully explain certain features, like why some planets have unusual tilts.
So it's pointing out some unanswered questions about how our solar system formed.
Yeah, and that's a valuable part of doing science. You know, it's good to question existing models and look for better explanations. It's how science advances.
But just because we have questions doesn't mean we throw out the whole model. What's the scientific community's current thinking on the nebular hypothesis?
It's still the best explanation we have. But like all scientific theories, it's constantly being refined and tested as we learn more.
So the document actually highlights that science is always evolving.
Right, and that's important to remember.
So while the hollow Earth theory might not be a valid explanation for how planets form, it reminds us that there's so much we still don't know about how the universe works.
Absolutely.
That sense of wonder and the desire to understand is what keeps science going.
Okay, back to the document. It takes us back to Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
Didn't we already talk about that?
Yeah, but now it goes into some even wilder theories about his expeditions, specifically his 1947 flight over the North Pole.
What kind of theories?
Well, some Hollow Earth fans say that Byrd didn't actually fly over the North Pole.
No.
They claim he flew into a hidden opening and found a lost civilization living inside the Earth.
A lost civilization.
Oh,
Now that's a story I want to hear about.
Me too.
So this document is really pushing this idea of a hidden civilization, huh? It sounds like they're trying to connect it to real events like Admiral Byrd's expeditions.
Yeah.
What does it say about Byrd and this civilization?
Well, it claims that during his flight over the North Pole in 1947, Byrd didn't just fly over ice, he actually went into a hidden opening that led to this inner world.
Wait, are they saying Byrd flew into a secret entrance and, met these people?
That's what the document suggests. It says Byrd's encounter wasn't just a glimpse of a different world. He actually made contact with a super advanced civilization living inside the Earth. Some even say they had technology way beyond anything we have.
Oh, wow. It's like a sci-fi movie now. Do they have flying cars and telepathy, too?
Well, the details get pretty wild depending on the source, but they all seem to agree that Byrd came back with a message of peace from this advanced civilization, like a warning to the rest of the world about the dangers of nuclear weapons.
It's a pretty powerful story. It fits with that idea of a wise, hidden civilization that knows more than we do.
Mm-hmm.
But is there any truth to it? Did Byrd actually write any of this down?
No, unfortunately not. Byrd's official logs and reports from his expeditions don't say anything about meeting a hidden civilization or getting any kind of special message.
So it seems like another Hollow Earth myth, probably coming from Cold War fears and the mystery surrounding the polar regions.
Right. It's so interesting how these ideas start and spread, especially when they play on our fears and our fascination with the unknown. But you know what? Even though this story about Byrd is probably a myth, there might be something to learn from it.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
What else can we learn from how this document looks at Byrd's expeditions?
Well, it actually mentions something real that might explain some of the more fantastic claims about Byrd's 1947 flight. It talks about something called a fata morgana.
A fata morgana? What's that?
It's a type of mirage, a really complex one, that happens in specific weather conditions. It can make faraway things look distorted, bigger, and even upside down. Imagine seeing a sparkling city or a huge mountain range off in the distance, only to find out it's just an illusion caused by how light bends.
So they're saying Byrd might have seen a mirage and thought it was something else.
That's exactly what the document is suggesting. Fata Morganas are pretty common in polar areas where changes in temperature can create the right conditions for these illusions. Byrd himself said he saw what he thought was land during his flight, but it turned out not to be there.
So what he thought was a hidden world might have just been a trick of the light.
It's possible. And it reminds us that even experienced explorers like Byrd can be tricked by what they see, especially in tough environments.
It's a good point. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the most likely, even when we're talking about something as mysterious as the polar regions. But this document keeps surprising us. What other ideas does it bring up?
Well, it goes into another concept often linked to the Hollow Earth. Polar shift.
Polar shift. Isn't that the idea that the Earth's poles could suddenly flip? North becomes south and everything's upside down.
That's the general idea, and it does sound pretty dramatic, almost like the end of the world. The document tries to tie this idea to the hollow Earth theory, suggesting that how the Earth is built on the inside could somehow cause these shifts.
So if the Earth was hollow, would it be more likely to have these sudden polar shifts?
That's what the document seems to be saying. It even brings up a researcher named Charles Hapgood, who had a theory about fast polar shifts back in the 1950s. But, important to know, most scientists don't agree with Hapgood's theory anymore.
Okay, so no sudden disastrous pole flips. But don't the Earth's poles actually move a little over time?
You're right, they do. There are two kinds of pole movements, magnetic and geographic. Magnetic pole movement means the Earth's magnetic poles gradually wander around. They're not stuck in one place.
Okay.
The flow of molten iron in the Earth's outer core affects them, so their position can change over time.
So the magnetic North Pole that we use for navigation isn't always in the exact same spot.
Exactly. It's constantly moving, and scientists keep a close eye on it.
And what about geographic pole shift? Does the Earth's axis actually change?
Yes, but very, very slowly. Geographic pole shift means the Earth's rotational axis slowly changes its position compared to the Earth's surface.
Okay.
This kind of shift takes thousands of years and is caused by things like continents moving and ice melting and refreezing in different places. Think of it like a really slow wobble in how the Earth spins.
So while the Earth poles do move, it's nothing like those dramatic flips some people imagine.
Exactly. It's more like a slow dance than a sudden jump. But it's still really cool to think about how dynamic the Earth is, how it's always changing.
It makes you realize how much is going on under our feet, even if we can't see it. This document is making me think about the Earth in a whole new way. What I find most interesting is how it mixes all these different ideas. Science, history, mythology. What's the main message it seems to be giving?
Well, it's definitely trying to make a case for the hollow Earth, but it's doing it by combining all sorts of things, some more believable than others. It's like they're trying to create this one big theory that explains everything, from the Earth's structure to old myths to things we can't explain.
It's like a detective story, putting together clues to solve a mystery. But maybe the mystery here is more about our own curiosity about the unknown than about what the Earth is really like.
I think you're right. The hollow Earth theory, even though science doesn't really support it, is so appealing because it speaks to something deep inside us, that wonder, that desire to believe there's more to the world than we can see.
It's the same feeling that makes us want to explore, to ask questions, to find answers, even when those answers are hard to find.
But isn't that what makes the journey so interesting? The fact that we don't have all the answers yet.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe someday we'll discover something that totally changes how we understand the Earth and the whole universe. Until then, we got to keep that curiosity alive, keep asking questions, exploring the unknown, and being open to new possibilities.
I'm totally with you on that. But for now, let's get back to this document. What other surprising claims or theories does it have? Well, it goes into something that's always been a mystery. The idea of hidden cities underground.
Hidden cities. That's something I want to hear more about. What specific myths or legends does the document talk about?
It talks about Shambhala and Agartha, these legendary cities or kingdoms that are supposed to be hidden deep within the earth.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
Yeah, these stories come from all sorts of cultures and traditions, but they all have this idea of a hidden world where super advanced beings live. They're supposed to have wisdom and knowledge that the outside world has lost.
It's a really cool idea. So the document's suggesting these myths that people have been telling for centuries could actually be based on real places.
Yeah, that's what it's saying. It even tries to connect these myths to science, suggesting that there might be these huge underground caverns, or even like a whole network of tunnels connecting these hidden cities.
Like a secret underground world.
I know, right?
The idea of a whole hidden world beneath us with its own civilizations and mysteries is so intriguing.
It really is.
But what does science say about the possibility of such vast spaces underground?
Well, while we know there are caves and underground formations, the idea of a whole network of cities under the Earth's surface is pretty unlikely.
Okay.
I mean, the pressure and heat down there would make it almost impossible for anything like that to exist.
So as cool as it is to imagine, those hidden cities are probably just a fantasy.
Probably, yeah. But the fact that these myths exist in so many cultures and have lasted for so long tells us something about humans.
What do you mean?
Well, we're drawn to the mystery of what we don't know, and we love to imagine what might be hidden beneath the surface. And not just literally underground, but in a figurative sense, too.
It's like that same curiosity that makes us want to explore and figure things out.
Exactly. And sometimes the act of looking for those answers is just as important as actually finding them. This deep dive into the hollow earth, even though it's not really scientific, has been a really cool way to look at how we think about the world, how we interpret information, and how our imaginations can just take over.
I agree, it's been a fascinating journey.
It reminds us that even though science has come so far, there's still a ton we don't know about our own planet, not to mention the huge universe out there.
And who knows what amazing discoveries are still waiting for us. Discoveries that could completely change how we understand everything.
The thought of those future discoveries is so exciting. But for now, let's wrap up our Hollow Earth deep dive. What are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think the most important thing is critical thinking. We hear all kinds of claims and theories, and it's super important to be able to look at them carefully, to weigh the evidence, and to know what's real science and what's just speculation.
It's about being curious and open-minded, but also being able to tell what's real and what's not.
Exactly. We shouldn't be afraid to ask questions, to disagree with what we hear, and to ask for proof. Sometimes, figuring out that a myth or a strange theory isn't true can teach us just as much as proving something scientific.
Because it makes us look at what we believe and think harder about the information we're getting.
Exactly. And with the hollow earth, while it's a super cool concept, the evidence just doesn't support it.
Right.
But looking into it has allowed us to learn about some awesome science stuff and to see just how powerful our imaginations can be.
It's a reminder that there's still so much wonder and mystery in the world, even with all the advances we've made in science.
I love that.
So to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the hollow earth. We hope you've had fun, and we encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never lose that sense of wonder.
Because who knows what other mysteries are out there just waiting for us to discover them.